When you have less work, you want to have less costs. When there is more work, you want to have more costs. You might even fix the costs, but only from the profits, never from the revenues. So what can you do to make your cash flows really resilient? If there is zero work, you want to have zero costs, except maybe some software. Zero costs. Okay, no fancy headquarters, no contracts with suppliers, with whoever, no contracts that you are paying for when there is no results, when there is no profit.
Welcome, Model FAs. David DeSalle here, president of Model FA and your host of the Model FA podcast. We have a very special guest today who's joining us all the way from Austria, Simon Severino. And Simon helps business owners in SaaS as well as service-based companies, helping them run their company more effectively, which results in sales that soar. He's been trusted by Google, Roche, Consilience Ventures, Amgen, AbbVie, and he's created something called Strategy Sprints, which is a method that doubles revenue in 90 days while getting owners out of the weeds. He's a TEDx speaker, contributor to Forbes and Entrepreneur magazine, and a member of the SVBS Silicon Valley Blockchain Society. And Simon does work with some advisors as well. So we will make sure that the conversation is tailored towards all of you who are listening. And we're going to be talking through a handful of concepts today that I think will really resonate with all of you who are tuning into this episode. So with that being said, Simon, welcome to the show.
Hello, David. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So I was super intrigued when we were on our intro call and, in our, industry, we focus a lot on ROI, return on investment, but you had a concept that you shared with me that's labeled ROL, return on life. And I'm curious to know from your perspective, what that means to you and how people can benefit from focusing on ROL.
We're coaching many financial advisors right now in our sprint program. And we always ask them in week 1 what their vision is. And there are 2 exercises. One is the business vision in 3 years. Where do you see your business? Who are your clients? How do you change their life, their economic situation? How do they go home? And then the other one is, what does the business for your quality of life? So how is the business a vehicle for what you want to experience? Because life is short. And what do you do with all that money? So at some point you have enough, and then you start creating those list of experience that you want to have. Like, what do I want to experience? Let's say I have 40 years more, 20 years more, wherever you are in your life cycle. What is it actually that you want to do? What is a rich life for you? And so this is the exercise where, yes, we are business advisors, so we help people scale businesses, but we start always in the sprint program with clarifying what is the business for you in 3 years. So exit, no exit, scalability, no scalability. And every advisory should be highly sellable, highly scalable. So if you're listening right now, we are a financial advisor, and your business would not sell right now for the price that you want to have, rethink, because every financial advisor, even a solopreneur, should structure the business. And we can go into depth of this. What does it mean to structure a business, to systemize financial advisory, even if you're a solopreneur, in a way that it's highly sellable, not just for the usual multiple, but for the multiple that you actually want to have, because it's possible, and we can share those tactics if you want. But yeah, that's the life aspect of it, because you have built a business out of your passion. It's generating cash flow now. But what is this cash flow expected to do? Come on, how much do you really need to pass to your children? I can share one experience from my own life. I have 3 kids. Started 3 years ago investing into Bitcoin. I was late to the party, but at least I got it at some point. And I said, okay, 1 Bitcoin per kid, because that's what I need as a legacy for them, right? It's the only thing that doesn't depreciate. So some real estate, some Bitcoin. Gold was doing nothing, and stocks, you never know what they're doing. So I started with 1 Bitcoin per kit. And then I went to 2 Bitcoins per kit. And then I just didn't stop buying Bitcoin every day. And so at some point, you have to ask yourself, and I was asking myself, wait a moment, if this goes really where I think it goes, I'm spoiling my children. This is much too much. It would ruin their character. They get just 2 millions just like that? No. Wait a moment. And so when you are in that mode of business generation and wealth generation, at some point, it makes sense to think about what does this actually mean for your life? Because, there is a number, what is it, like 90K per year, and more of that doesn't make us happy. And so there is also this question, what is a rich life for you? What is time freedom? What is project freedom for you? And also, what is financial freedom?
So now how do you execute upon that? So to help set the stage a little bit better with this question, Simon, one of the coaching offerings that we offer is around exit planning for folks who plan to exit their business, over the next, call it 3 to 10 years. And one of the things that we focus on with them is when you sell the business, we want to help make sure that we paint a very clear vision as to how they're going to spend their days upon sale and afterwards. And the reason being is, and I forget the exact statistic off the top of my head, but there's a very large percentage of folks that when they exit their business, they regret doing so because they don't have a well-defined plan for what they're going to do on a day in and day out basis moving forward. So that's more so focused on, call it the future. And it seems like, if I'm understanding you correctly, that the return on life isn't just about the future, but it's the here and now as well, to make sure that you have, a balanced or blended life with your work and your personal and your family and things like that. So if I'm an advisor and I feel stuck in my business and feel as if I'm not able to also enjoy my life to the extent that I want to, what are some actionable things that an advisor can consider to help free up that time so that they actually get that return on life today, as opposed to waiting for some point in the future?
We focus first on creating multiple revenue streams that stack upon each other, then on improving the brand strength, and then we systemize everything so that to remove people from the equation. Like, for example, I hold a ton of Tesla and I'm not happy with the key people risk. There is a key Elon risk in there. Without Elon, nobody knows what this thing is doing. I don't think it would run. So that's a key person risk. And so the first thing that we help eliminate. When you've done those steps, you have now multiple revenue streams, and I can give you some examples. And then you have strengthened the brand and you have removed people from the equation. So it works now, whoever runs that thing, whatever the people are, you can just pick people from outside the street. The processes are documented so well and are working so well and so resilient that you can pick anybody from the street, put them in there, and they would run the business okay. That's the moment to sell. And, we don't prepare them for life afterwards. And maybe we don't. And so what they do after it is they always start the next thing. I never had a client who sold his company and then just retired. They are usually around 60, 65 when they sell in our community, and they just start the next thing. Right now, it's some crypto hedge fund or a software for a crypto hedge fund or something similar. But let's go back to the financial advisors. So you think of, okay, I want to make sure I might sell at some point, which is always a good idea. Even if you don't want to sell, run it as if you want to sell it. So first thing, you write down the processes. Now, but Simon, I'm a solopreneur. There are no processes. All right, let's write them down. Let's write them down. Just write them down. So how do you do marketing, the awareness, the engagement? And then how do you get them on your calendar to talk to you? And then on the calendar, that's sales. How do you do sales? How do you start the conversation, lead the conversation, close the deal, start the delivery? Now that's your operations processes. What do you deliver in week 0, week 1? How do you onboard them? How do you create little peaks of energy where you say, wow, you just unlocked level 2 of your financial freedom? So that's in operations, we help them create levels of excitement and literally levels that their clients can achieve. And this makes a ton of difference. And we can go deeper into that if it's interesting, but you have to create some activation points, activation stages, because that creates energy peaks. In those energy peaks, you will ask for referrals. And if you build a systemized way of asking them for referrals, a systemized is one that works without people. So an automated way that they get asked at this very specific point in time, now you have a sellable business. Before, actually not. But if you have this, now you have a highly sellable business. And now we put on top some extra revenue streams. So let's say you have 50 clients as a financial advisor, and you help them do, ETF baskets, ETF portfolios. Now, those 50 people can become a network for each other. If they have similar problems, but different approaches, they can learn so much from each other. And so we help them start. You just need 50 clients and you can have a mastermind of 30 members. Let's say you let them pay 10K per year. You have now a nice running mastermind as an additional revenue stream. Then you write a book about your method, one more revenue stream. Certifications, franchises, one more revenue stream. So we help them stack upon what's already working and just reusing the IP, reusing their wisdom, their expertise, just in multiple ways. Because if you stack those revenues upon each other, now you have a cash flow machine. You put that whole thing under one brand, which you have already. We just have to polish the brand a little bit. So it is really coherent. And now you have something that's sellable.
Interesting.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I like the idea of adding the additional revenue streams, whether it's some of the examples that you chose, or even an advisor just using their current revenue to, say, build up a real estate portfolio or become more of a passive investor in a different industry altogether. So the idea, I think the point that you're trying to get across is the idea of diversifying where your income and your revenue sources are coming from, whether it's leveraging your existing client base to kind of cross-sell them in other valuable ways, or things outside of that altogether, be it real estate as the example. I like the idea of diversifying that quite a bit.
Diversifying would be in different categories. You are using the same core value creation. So your IP, your process, and just stacking 6, 7, 8 revenue streams upon that. In the end, it creates a defensibility, a resilience like diversification. But you are not adding anything new. You're just using the same core knowledge and expertise that is your intellectual property. And you are using that to create multiple revenue streams upon each other that also create network effects, because a mastermind member might become your client, might become your referral partner, etc.
Yeah, an example actually comes to mind of one of our clients. He was actually on our podcast, Justin Goodbread, and he had, off the top of my head, 4 revenue streams that were targeted towards, the same folks. One being he has his wealth management firm. Number 2, he offers business consulting to his business owner clients. And if they meet him with his consulting practice first, he can send them over to wealth management. He gets paid to speak, which in turn, markets everything else that he does, including he's authored a couple books as well. So I think that's a perfect example for the picture that you just painted.
Yes, exactly. And if he can keep it simple and coherent, that's now a sellable company, because it has multiple revenue streams, except for the speaking thing, because that's not so much scalable. But except for that, everything else, if he puts his main speaking topic into a book and into an online course, then we have exactly those multiple revenue streams, highly scalable, highly sellable. put on top of it a certification model or a franchise model. Now you got a nice package.
Well, it's interesting that you say that to just confirm your thoughts even more. When he did sell his business, he got a much higher premium than the industry standard in terms of multiple upon sale based on those other revenue streams that he has. So as I'm sort of taking what you're saying and applying it to a real life scenario that I'm personally aware of, I'm like, oh yeah, that does make sense. So I'm glad we were able to flush that out. One thing I wanted to get into, Simon, is I would consider myself as someone who's very habitual, ranging anywhere from the way I manage my calendar to like the way I stack the dishwasher. Like it's got to be in a certain way. And you had talked about a few different habits that all CEOs should have. I'm curious to know from your perspective and experience in working with folks, what are those habits that tend to serve people the most?
Every excellent achiever is habitual. If you study any athlete, any entrepreneur, anybody who has built, scaled, sold a business with success, they are all habits driven. They all have checklist support structures. And now some people go, oh, but that takes your freedom, right? And if you are living habits, then, they give you freedom. Because you have those habits, even my kids have habits. They know exactly what happens tomorrow afternoon. And it's not taking freedom from them. It's giving them freedom because if a friend at school asks them, hey, Federico, do you want to play soccer tomorrow? He say, yeah, sure. Between 4 p.m. and 5 p.m., let's meet there. That's creating freedom. If he wouldn't have that, he would go, yeah, let me ask my parents. Then 2 hours later, he meets us. And then he go, can I play soccer? I don't know. Maybe I tell you later, etc. You see the chaos and the lack of freedom that happens if you don't have habits. So I live my life in a highly structured way. I have a morning ritual, which is me time, because I have 3 kids. So before they wake up, that's my me time. 2 hours me time. I do only things that are good for me. And then during the month, I have a weekly habit, a daily habit, and a monthly habit that are very, very helpful, especially in these tough months. They have kept me afloat. So, and when everything was breaking down for our competitors and for many people in the market, we navigated very well because we had the daily habit, weekly habit, and monthly habit. Everybody in our team does that. So the daily habit is writing down how did we allocate our time today and what we delegate tomorrow. This is super important for financial advisors. If you don't write down how did you allocate your time today, and you can do it live right now with us on the show. If you want, you go to strategysprints.com, you download the daily flow, and you fill it out. So how did you spend your day today or yesterday? Write it down. And then go through all the activities. Which one gave you energy, took energy from you? Which one moved just parts of the business forward versus the whole business forward? And now you select just one thing, which took energy from you, did not move the whole business forward. And you say, this is the next that I'm going to delegate. And now, even if you say, but I'm a solopreneur, I cannot delegate. Well, you can delegate to a software. There are wonderful softwares, hundreds. We use dozens. We love it. And you can delegate to a freelancer, and you can delegate to a part-time person. So start delegating as soon as you can. Just small stuff. And the rule is the rule of thirds. As soon as you can make 3 times the money that you spend in that hour, do it. So let's say it's bookkeeping. And you can outsource bookkeeping to a software or to a person. And it costs you maybe $20 an hour. Can you do in that hour $60? Can you bring in $60 in that hour? If yes, delegate. If not, raise your prices. Hello, $60 in an hour should be, your first month as a financial advisor. So yes, delegate, and that's the daily flow. Daily flow, how am I allocating my time? What will I delegate next? Because the goal is to systemize your business. And then again, to make it less people dependent. Then the weekly habit, we have one dashboard for each client. And that's the weekly marketing number, sales number, operations number. One number that tells you, are we moving in the right direction at the right pace? Because all our clients have 3 goals for the next 90 days. And weekly, there is a measurement if they're moving towards achieving those goals or not. What's their confidence and what are the numbers? So one marketing number, one sales number, one ops number that tells you that you're moving in the right direction at the right pace. That's the weekly dashboard, the weekly habit. They can also download this from strategysprints.com for free. And then there is the monthly habit. Once a month, we do half an hour strategy check. What else can our clients do if they don't work with us? Can they hire Mike, the intern, to do their finances? Can they outsource it? Can they do nothing? Can they have a full-time employee? And what else can they do if they work with our competitors? Who are our current top 3 competitors? Do we need to care? Do we need to change something or not? And then sprint budgeting. Of the 10 features that we have right now, what are the 2 where we are winning against our competitors? What are the 2 where we are losing against our competitors? We want to cut 10, 15, 20% budget from the 2 features where we are losing against our competitors directly in the next month and reallocate them directly onto the 2 features where we are winning. Let's say there are 2 activities that you do where you are better than your competitors this week. Now imagine next month you put in 20% more money, which means people and attention, right? Time, attention, 20% more. So you are not just winning against your competitors in those 2 features, can be 2 services, can be 2 products, right? But you are now winning, plus it's 20% harder for your competitors to eat your lunch, to grab your people. And that is strategy. Strategy means how can you always be, 2 steps ahead of your competitors and make it hard for them to eat your lunch and make it easy for you to eat their lunch.
I really like the breakdown of the daily, weekly, monthly habits, particularly the daily, because you're essentially reflecting on your overall productivity during the day while providing some sort of solution to make sure that you're spending your time doing things that give you energy. So we have this quadrant that we've put together for our clients called the energy audit. And if anyone's interested in the energy audit, just shoot me an email, david@modelfa.com, and I'm happy to share that with you. And the 4 quadrants are things that you're great at and that you love to do, things that you're good at and you like to do, things that you're good at and you don't like to do, and then things that you're not good at and you don't like to do. And essentially, you want to spend as much of your time as possible in that first quadrant that I mentioned, things that you're great at and that you absolutely love to do. And then anything else, to your point, Simon, either needs to be delegated, automated, or quite frankly, deleted. Like, does it actually need to be done? Or are you just feeling like you're accomplishing something by, doing whatever that activity is? I really like that. I also mentioned in that overview about identifying a solution. Okay. And I find a lot of folks will obsess over coming up with the best solution to whatever problem is at hand. But you have a different philosophy around that, where the phrase that you shared is falling in love with the problem and not the solution, which seems on its surface anyways, sort of backwards to me at the initial glance. So I'm curious to understand more about your perspective and what you mean about that. When an advisor comes across a problem in their business, why is it that they should be obsessing over the actual problem and not obsessing over the solution?
Yes. So I love the energy quadrants. And we had recently a sprint client, Anthony Iannarino, who came and said, Simon, you know what? I love speaking and I love sales and I hate everything else. It's not what I love doing. Can we systemize my team? I have 3 freelancers. Can we systemize it in a way that they take from me everything that I don't like doing? And we said, sure, that's what a business is there for. So that you can do your zone of genius and everything else you can systemize, you can delegate, you can automate, you can outsource. And that's exactly what we did. And after 3 months, he had now a team that was taking the business basically from him. And he was just doing 2 tasks, the one that he enjoyed most doing. And now the solutions and the problem. So if you're a financial advisor, I'm sure you have a great solution. Like, hey, I have this portfolio management software that can show you anytime how you're doing. I have this software that does your bookkeeping. I can consult you on how you can triple your net worth just by saving taxes. You can have multiple solutions.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you fall in love with your solution, at some point, something technologically more astute will come up and eat your lunch. Like, we had great phones and then the iPhone was there. Whoosh. It was just a better technological solution. So there will always be a better technological solution for a problem. And now, if your thing is, okay, I am a technologist and I will always have the newest technology, then you might go for that. But if you are a financial advisor, you're not a technologist in the first place, right? You are great at solving one problem. And so carve out what that problem is and stick with that problem. Because if you stick with that problem, in 3 years, you can change offer, you can change product, you will still keep your clients because they know that you are the best to solve that problem. Let's make an example. Let's say I can help you. I know that you're busy. And so I'm a financial advisor. I work only with women who are 45. Their kids are old enough and they want to learn investing. Okay? Let's say that's your solution. Your solution is an investing course. Now, what is the problem? The problem is that they want to keep their wealth. And if you stick around for the problem, you can, in 10 years, still be relevant and still have all the, let's say, 50 clients around you and come with the next offer. Hey, people, now I have something about crypto because there is a new thing in town. It's maybe even better than bonds and gold. Let me walk you through it. This is the crypto course. So solutions come and go every 10 years, latest. And now with technology, every year, actually. But the problem still stays there. So there are eternal things and there are temporary things. Focus on the eternal things. The eternal things are, who are you here to serve? For example, it's women 45 and you want to solve the money dilution problem or the lack of knowledge problem or whatever the problem is. Okay. So stick to who are you here to serve, your target audience, and stick to the problem that they have and you help solve. These are the two things you should never change. Like for me, it's 21 years that I do only one thing. I'm here for B2B entrepreneurs and I help them solve the scalability problem. That's it. Scaling while having fun.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the way I interpret it initially is when they encounter a problem within their own personal business, but the way that you positioned it makes a lot more sense, whereas it helps maintain a certain consistency around your communication strategy to your target market while still giving you the flexibility to change and evolve as those solutions evolve and stay relevant, as you put it. So I appreciate that perspective. It's helpful. It then turns your content and your communication strategy around the problem that you do solve. It turns it into, a fairly evergreen process where it never really expires. So you're saving a lot of time and effort on a go forward basis as it relates to your communication and your marketing. Finally, Simon, before we, start wrapping up and pivoting a little bit, in every business, there's a certain percentage of folks' costs that are fixed and others are variable. I think that sometimes advisors appreciate fixed costs because it's very predictable, but oftentimes those fixed costs, they may not be maximizing the use of whatever that cost is associated with. You and I talked briefly about how to turn fixed costs into variable costs to be able to be more flexible within the business. Tell me more about that and how an advisor can benefit from shifting to some variable costs.
When you have less work, you want to have less costs. When there is more work, you want to have more costs. You might even fix the costs, but only from the profits, never from the revenues. So what can you do to make your cash flows really resilient? If there is zero work, you want to have zero costs, except maybe some software. Zero costs. Okay, no fancy headquarters, no contracts with suppliers, with whoever, no contracts that you are paying for when there is no results, when there is no profit. And this is so simple, but most financial advisors that we work with don't have that in place. They have contracts with a PR agency where they pay $2,000 per month just to do PR. And so we help them reshape that whole thing. Say, no, wait a moment. What are the 3 gigs in which magazine that you want to land? Okay, and then they change the contract and say, all right, PR agency, I will give you $3,600 if you bring me into the Wall Street Journal, and I will give you $21,000 if you bring me into the New York Times. So in these cases, the costs may stay the same, but only if they bring the result. That's a de-risking tactic. Then the other one is the resilience tactic. You can have even employees on a commission based. For example, most sales people are used to have 100% commission based. They get paid only if they bring revenues. So you pay them from the profits, not from operations, from the profits. And so from the profits, you might even do it fixed. Like many salespeople have a 15% commission on what they close. They close 100K, they get 15% in that month. That's a good fixed cost to have because it's from the profits. So think always profits first and then revenue second and cash flow third. That's a good principle and something that we install in every single contract that our clients have. And then you can even move it forward. The masterclass is when you have your employees pay you to be on your team, which is something that many right now in our program are installing. A certification program, a franchise program. This is basically somebody saying, I want to pay per month to use your IP, to use your process. So you are having now operations colleagues. You're building a team that is paying you to be on your team. That's level 3 of this. But you start by the current contracts, turning them into variables that you only pay when there is profits. So that if there is zero coming in a month, you have zero troubles. And you can scale it upwards ad infinitum. So franchise model, certification model, all these things are a great way to have a resilient cost structure.
Yeah, I do think there's still like a certain level of fixed costs, though, whether it's, their assistant, their power planner, the folks who aren't salespeople. So I guess let me get clarification. Are you suggesting that they try and position all their costs as variable or limit the amount of fixed cost in the business?
As much as possible. So if you're a financial advisor and you have an executive assistant who is on the Philippines, yes, she will have a contract and she will get paid per month independently of the results. But how much percentage is that? You hopefully have 8 to 15 people who are doing your operations, right? You might have 1 assistant or 2 assistants, but you will have hopefully 8, 12, 15, 25 people who are actually running the client work. Those people you can have contracts with that are around the client work. They bring clients, they get a commission. They do client work, they get a commission. Your setters, they get a commission for how many people they bring on your calendar. They bring 1 person on the calendar, they get that amount. You close them, they get a bonus. The closers, so people who wake up in the morning and have scheduled discovery calls or demo calls, however you call them, and close them. You pay them for closed deals, not for number of calls that they did, for closed deals. And so in this whole picture, your executive assistant is such a marginal cost that's okay to have that as a fixed cost.
Understood. Yeah, I think the conversation so far, and we'll pivot over to the final part, but what I like about it is it's a very different way of thinking for, at least in my experience and the advisors that I've come across, very different way of thinking in terms of structuring the business, which my hope is for folks listening, it causes you to just stop and think differently and wonder to yourself, could this be applied to my business? Could this free up time? Could it generate another stream of revenue? Could I limit my risk in terms of my expenses going out the door? But it is very different. And again, I like that because it causes you to pause and think. Going back, one of the things that I really enjoyed as well, Simon, is going back to the habits, daily, weekly, and monthly. Reason being is because I find, and I'm sure you see this all the time too, is that oftentimes advisors can get stuck in the business, and this forces them to, raise themselves up and work on the business. So I really like that structure. So before we wrap up, one of the things that I do with all the guests that we have on, for those of you who are listening, if it's your first time listening, we ask them about a book or two that's had an impact on them. And they share a quick, minute or two blurb about why it had an impact. And the two books you chose, Simon, one is called Sprint by Jake Knapp, and then the other one is Alchemy by Rory Sutherland. Why'd you choose those books? What's the impact that it's had on you, your business, your life, etc.?
Jake wrote a wonderful book on how you can test an assumption before you actually waste money on it. Because most projects are wasted money. Like, I should launch an online course on this. Maybe. But if you build it, you will waste 6 months and 20K. Instead, run a prototyping session with 100K. Just put in 100K in 3 days and you run it using that Jake Knapp method. And you will have validated your hypothesis quickly. And after the validation, you can still decide to really run the project. But now you know that people would pick it up. So that's the prototyping that Jake shares. Wonderful method. And Rory, he wrote a book which is so funny. It's just very well written. He's such a funny guy. And he's a colleague of mine, strategy advisor, and he has many, many big problems to solve. Like, we have clients together who had to solve a very, very, very big problem in Europe. And he found a way to do it, which is completely different to what most people would think about. So he's such a different thinker. And it's amazing. And his book is called Alchemy. It's really fun to read. It's not very applicable, but it's very inspiring.
Love it. I read a lot of books. I haven't read those ones yet, so I'm always looking for a good recommendation. So I appreciate you bringing those up. So for those of you who are listening, first off, as always, very grateful for your time in doing so. And Simon, you did mention a couple of resources on your website as you were going through some of the stuff that we were talking about earlier. But if people want to learn more about you or see what it's like to work with you, I think you also have a book as well that they could scoop up. Where do you want to drive folks to if they're interested in learning more?
Yeah, we coach people, so they can go to strategysprints.com and hop on a call with us and see if we can help them stack multiple revenue streams on each other, reduce risk, reduce costs, and have more fun. They can read the book. It's called Strategy Sprints. It's on Amazon. It has many, many checklists and blueprints that are helping our clients right now. They can download for free the tools that we were talking about, Daily Flow, Weekly Habit, Monthly Habit. They can download them for free on strategysprints.com. They're open source. And they find me everywhere. If they Google Simon Severino or Strategy Sprints, we are everywhere.
Love it. Well, Simon, I appreciate your time. I know, if my math is correct, the current time in Austria right now is close to 6 p.m. So I'll let you go hang out with the family. That way you get your return on life as well. But I appreciate you joining today.
Thank you so much, David. This was fun. Thank you for showing up so consistently in your community. Keep rolling, everybody.
Appreciate it.